All right. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Two Angles on Angling. This is Jordan with my co host.
It's Ryan, guys. What's up?
All right. Ryan's going to start off here. He has a lot more days on the water than I do this week. So, Ryan, if you want to
Yeah,
take it
did
away.
all seven. Um, the weather's been total. I'm beat down. My skin is just wind beaten and rain beaten. The past 2 days have been pretty brutal with northeast winds and rain. I actually had the last 2 days off, but I just went out and did recon missions, trying to find fish. I nothing significant to report. I couldn't find a pattern out on Erie. Super picky. Caught a few, but it wasn't anything crazy out there. The uppers fishing well, spotty but well. Um, and then the lower bass are starting to really kick in down there. Trout, there's some trout still hanging around in the river, but not a ton. Definitely bass starting to kick in. And then Lake Ontario's just it's been exciting and will continue to be exciting. Like Kings are, they're fishing very well. You got to kind of follow the river water around. So I've been informed many times, and sometimes I did that a couple times this past week, and I failed to do that a couple times this past week, or couldn't find it. Um, the main thing out in Lake Ontario lately, just because of all these different wind directions, it's pushing the fish around beginning of the week. Um, they were over by Wilson and Alcott in pretty good numbers, or even further east than that. And then we just had a series of easts and north winds all this towards the end of this last week, which pushed a lot of those fish over to our side, by the Niagara, I mean. So, and then we had southwests later on Friday that pushed the fish back east. So not all the way, but they're so bottom line they're moving around. You just got to get out there every day and kind of follow
Yeah.
what's happening. And because I'm not out there every day, I'm having to make assumptions. And talking to some guys from what they did the day before, and trying to figure out what's possible. But yeah, so more times than not, very successful sessions, but a couple huge runs and trying to figure stuff out,
Yeah.
chasing water clarity. But we still ended up closing, doing some fun stuff. Um, so yeah, and then the walleye opener was this week. So I haven't. I'm actually going to go target them on sometime next week, or this
Nice.
upcoming week.
Okay. Cool.
Um, just for one of the days, getting out with the Whisperer and the Silent Assassin, two of my top clients for walleye guys for sure.
Nice.
So longtime friends, longtime clients. They're great dudes. So we're gonna go on an adventure there.
Yeah,
I'll talk about that next week. But
for sure.
so it's I'm forgive me. I'm just worn down from towards the end of this week. It's that enduring that weather
Yeah.
has been pretty brutal. But it's everything is good. Like everything is good. It's just it'd be nice to have some
Yeah.
stability, and it looks like that's coming. Like the forecast for this upcoming week looks really promising after like tomorrow, maybe later on in the day Tuesday. So, but even tomorrow, it's really big east winds, but it's not. That's only a problem for Lake Ontario. It's
Hmm.
not a problem for Lake Erie or the Upper Niagara.
For sure.
So, or the lower, just the river in general, and Lake Erie. It's not much of an issue. So that'll be what I'm doing tomorrow.
All
But the
right.
rest of the week, who knows? Like it'll be a lot of bass focus this upcoming week, but I think there'll be at least one or two king salmon sessions. So
Sweet.
we'll
All
see what
right.
happens.
Yeah, and as we talked about before the podcast on Wednesday, I'm going to get out fishing, so we'll go over that next week as well. So as for my side of things this weekend. Friday, I drove down to Pennsylvania, had some family stuff down there, and then I just got back today. We're recording on Sunday again, and it's what time is it right now? Around 4 o'clock or so.
Yep. 4:30.
So yeah, cloudy out. You know, not the
Wind looks like it's dying,
yeah.
but
I was gonna
which
say it
it's
does.
was kind
It's
of
settling
supposed to.
down a little bit, which is nice. But uh, so starting off here, like obviously this week, like things have been blooming like heavily, with all the
Yeah.
rain and a lot more colors coming around. Well, on the drive down there, about 45 minutes in, like it was a completely different scenery. Like the trees were vibrant
Yeah.
greens and like yellows. Yeah, it was amazing. Uh, yeah, it was just such a big switch there. So heading down there, that was awesome seeing that. Uh, a lot, you know, obviously being down there, had an intention of fishing for a bit. I figured the water clarity was going to suck just due to all the rain. I didn't ask my mom how much rain they got. I just kind of figured like they probably got a similar amount to us, which turns out they did not, thankfully. However, before I left on Friday, I was like, you know what? I should just grab my spinning rod so I can just throw jerk baits because if the water's dirty, like why am I wasting my time with the fly rod? Like
Right.
I may as well just be covering as much water as
Exactly.
cast after cast. I forgot it, so I was like, all right, this is just I gotta dedicate it to the fly rod and like whatever it is, what it is. So Saturday got out midday, in between rainstorms that were passing through, and started off in this one big slack area and caught every species that I've caught there. I've caught there, you know, from the pickerel to brown trout to the suckers, or well, now I know them
Oh,
to be
fish.
fall fish, truly. So I was like, all right, this is a good area to start. And then there were, I think, two people on the one pool. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna leave that be. Once they're gone, I'll hit that up. Um, and I started to see fish rising, but it wasn't like a crazy enough thing where I was like, I really think I need to put a dry fly on or something to try and get this because it was just every once in a while. And but I did notice, you know, there's a lot of bugs and you know hatches going off, so that it was interesting. It wasn't like thick clouds by any means, but you know there were still plenty available. Um, so then I started to see the activity pick up a little bit, and in that little stretch right there is when I caught the one and only fish of the trip, which was a fall fish. So it was a pretty cool fight. I caught it on a streamer, which that was nice because I haven't caught one on the streamer in quite a long while now, so that was cool. Um, and then something else to tie into that. So I've been doing a lot more of the fish art lately, and I after I caught that fish, I was like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate some time
Look at
to,
that, huh?
yeah. So that's the mushroom I told you about. So yeah, here's the. Hopefully that's good. If you can't see it very well, it will be on my blog too. But um, my rendition of it as well. So, dude, it was a super cool thing. Like you know when we were at lake trout fishing and smallmouth fishing recently, like you know, now that I'm doing a lot more of the artwork of like the fish, especially close up on the heads and everything, it's like
Right.
really baffling me how much detail there is.
Yeah,
So
you can
like
get crazy with it.
I'm becoming obsessed with that. So that catching that fish and like looking at that blowing up the picture and being like, wow, there's a lot of vibrant bright colors in this, you know, in this fish. So that was a fun, you know, little
So do
endeavor there too.
those fall fish are what the Brits call chub,
Okay.
and like they're very similar species. The ones that I caught in the UK were a bit bigger than that, and those weren't the ones that I caught weren't. So in general, the ones that inhabit the UK are much larger than ours.
Okay.
Um, but I've caught some fairly big ones in like in New Hampshire one time out we were fishing the Androscoggin River. We were catching like brown trout and rainbows and landlocked Atlantics, and we would catch these fall fish every once in a while. And down
Nice.
in Virginia, on the Shenandoah. I've caught them while bass fishing, and I mean they fight hard and they're native
Yeah,
predators, man. I
they
mean,
they do fight hard. That's yeah. That's they I. That's the one thing about like when I'm fishing that section or just Pine Creek in general. When I'm there, I'm like, regardless if I don't catch trout, I am going to catch those, and like they fight like hell. Like it's just, and I have caught some bigger ones down there as well. So it's just hey, um, when you aren't able to fish as often, I don't care like catching anything. It's just I'm not going to be picky, man.
oh,
So
but the crazy thing about that though, dude, is in the UK that's a prized fish.
yeah.
You know, like they like there's oh, the book, the Complete Angler. Why am I forgetting the author's name? I think I have it on my bookshelf. Yeah, yeah. Why am I forgetting his name? Oh man, I had the dean of my school, School of Advanced Warfighting, where I got my master's degree, is gave this to me as a gift, as a parting gift. But Isaac Walton.
Mm.
Um, and so I read it cover to cover. But so the Complete Angler is like early essays and accounts about fly fishing, where it was invented in the UK,
Oh wow.
right?
Okay.
And like the early culture and like the aristocracy. But he even gets detailed into how to tie flies, and there's chapters in there specifically dedicated to fishing for chub.
Okay, that's awesome. All
And
right.
I mean, so when I fish with my buddy Jay in the UK, like that's what they want to catch. And you know, and I dig it because they're
Yeah.
native predators to that river. Like I don't know other than those. There's at one point, is there a dam on Pine somewhere?
I don't know, not that I'm aware of
Um,
currently.
but those there were probably northerns in there, and there are probably smallmouth in there, and maybe not smallmouth. Have you ever caught a smallmouth
Hmm.
in there? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if somebody brought those there or not.
I believe they're native.
Okay, but you know, who knows why they introduced trout to that ecosystem,
Yeah.
right? But like, because it could be a banger, like the Susquehanna.
Hmm.
You know, Susquehanna is just big and wide, you know, but
Yeah.
it's not all that deep, and there are sections that where it is, but
So yeah, speaking of, you just said describing the river. So yeah, I ended up bumping into a guy that first day after as I was fishing, and we were walking out as it was pouring, and he was like, "Yeah, man, like I like coming here. I like fishing bigger water." And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm from Buffalo, like, and
yeah,
where we fish, like, I'm like, yeah, this is like on the way smaller end of anything I ever
yeah,
fish, like."
yeah.
Um, so just perspective there. But so I left today, and as I was as I was driving, um, I was getting close to the parking area for where I get off there to go fishing, and I was like, I gotta make a few casts. Like I cannot head home right now. Like and not give it a go because I knew I was planning on stopping halfway and fishing the Jenny for a little bit at some point, but it just looked like trash when I drove through, and I know that more rain came through, so I was like, I don't find a lot of hope in that. The water on Pine, the clarity was not great by any means. It had a decent flow, but not great water clarity. So, anyways, gave it a go, and no fish, no luck there, sadly. However, the birds, there it was an epic session. So, I got there and I had the Merlin app out, and the bird of the day for me was the Eastern Kingbird. And no joke, I start recording, and like 2 minutes in, one flies in front of me, and it picks it up, and I'm like, all right, sweet. Like, got a visual on it and heard it. Awesome. A lot of the standards, robins, and uh, so from there, as I'm approaching the spot, a great blue heron flies from like the one shore to the other, and I'm like, all right, nice, another one. Crow flies by. All right, then The next saw a pileated woodpecker, which was awesome, flying. So then, as I'm casting along and I'm getting nearer to the end of the little session that I had, I look up and obviously the whole time I'm there, I'm like, all right, I'm probably gonna see a bald eagle at some point. you know. Well, lo and behold, I saw not one but two. I saw the one flying and then landed in the tree, and then I ended up walking a little further down, and there was two in the tree. So it doesn't get much better than that. I didn't
Oh
catch
yeah.
fish, but whatever. For a short little session, chucking the streamer around, it was well worth it. And with subpar water clarity and conditions in general, it was worth a go. And always nice seeing the
I was just
birds.
thinking about this, man. Before I lose it. Oh, okay. Remind me to tell you about the lightning, but I want to caveat your birds because I fished everywhere this past week, like upper, lower, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. I fished for this is now 14 straight days,
Wow. Okay.
and I could have taken yesterday and today off. In retrospect, I should have to rest, but it's cool. I just want to see how because things are developing very very rapidly. So I feel like I'm missing out if I don't at least have a sense of even if I don't catch anything, then I've learned something. That
Yeah.
okay, they're not in this area. Um,
Constant recon,
so
man.
because I'm not fishing to places where I know they are. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
find other places where
Yeah.
they are.
Expand.
So anyway,
Oh, speaking of bald eagles, by the way,
it's BA.
I don't know if anyone can see them on the socks there, but yeah.
But I bring all that up because on the bird front, I've been in a bunch of different terrains around here and possible to see what can be
Yeah.
seen. So swallows, like their entire population is pretty much here. Barn swallows, cliff swallows,
Yeah.
rock swallows, friggin' they're all the only one that I haven't seen yet are purple martins. But the
Mm,
swallows, like if you're listening to this and walking along the water somewhere, they're the birds that are flying over the water doing all kinds of really
yeah.
crazy acrobatic stuff.
Yeah.
And
No
there's
doubt.
multiple species of them, but the
Yeah.
ones so like if you're in Tonawanda, for example, and you're looking out over the water, most likely what you're going to see are barn swallows, which are super colorful. They got these
Mm-hmm.
bright orange bellies and like iridescent blue wings. They're constantly chirping. That's like their echolocation. And then you might see tree swallows. But if you go to like the lower Niagara, you're mostly going to see bank swallows, cliff swallows,
Mm-hmm.
and they're different, slightly different color, white bellies, like or brown bodied, Um, and then if you're out, in Buckhorn, for example, like near Grand Island, there's going to be a lot of tree swallows around. Anywhere where there's trees, there'll be tree swallows too. So they have their own like little niche, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
all look different.
Yeah.
Like the coloration's different, and their like sizes are slightly different, but their
Okay.
coloration's very different. They're totally distinguishable. Like, and then if you don't live near the water though, and you look up at the sky, like if you hear crazy little very rapid chirping and these things that look like bats that are just flying around in the daytime but they're not, they have these like really fast wing flaps. Those are chimney swifts, so they're here. And the reason why all those are here is because if you've if anybody's gone out gone near the water on warm days where there's no wind, there's an insane chironomid hatch happening, like just tiny freaking bugs are hatching like crazy out of the river. It's just blizzarding out there. And dude, like the other day on this is Monday night. It was dead calm. It was gorgeous Monday night. And I fished the north end of Grand Island and with my buddy Lee cuz like Tuesday was like really nasty weather, so we knew we couldn't fish for that long. So I'm like, look, I'll just tack a half day on to the back of it today, and then we'll just do a half day tomorrow morning. We'll just call it 2 days. So we went out in the evening, and the bugs were crazy, right? Out on the water, it was crazy. But so I go home and I'm driving past through Gratwick, and I
Mm-hmm.
look up in the sky, and I'm talking like high, bro, like high. There's this thing that looks a like if you've ever been out west, if you've seen those dust devil tornadoes that happen out in
Mm-hmm.
the desert, but it looked like this cyclone, this like dusty brown cyclone up in the sky, and it was just in this position, and I couldn't tell if it was smoke or what, and I kept looking at it, and dude, it was no doubt bugs. They all gathered in this like mega
Swarm.
this yeah, and they're just this crazy mating thing, and
Wow.
there was no wind, dude. So I'm driving down River Road, and the sun angle was perfect. You could see just a huge cloud of these tiny chironomids, like a massive cloud of it, totally over the river. Like, and what was wild is when we were driving to the boat launch earlier in the afternoon, there was again no wind, and I looked across Grackwick Park, and there were just hundreds of cyclones coming off of the water or coming off of the grass. Just like cyclones, maybe twice the size of my forearm and maybe 10 or 12 feet tall. Just all dense bugs just starting to get into a mating formation. And then apparently, what they do is they just ride up as high as they can go and then form a mega cloud. And dude, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
That's
So
awesome.
th- those birds are feasting.
Yeah, no doubt.
I
Yeah.
mean that's why they're all here right
Yeah.
now. Is they're that's why they nest here, because this is just part one. Like then the caddis are going to come. There's Hexagenia mayflies that hatch at night off of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. It's a bug factory
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, so they can generate enough calories to feed their chicks. Like total bug eaters. So those are here. The other ones that I've seen are Orioles. That's new for this week. I've seen a bunch of Orioles this week. And then I also yellow warblers.
Yeah, I
I,
saw it
I,
down in PA.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got
there's a
those
bunch
as
of yellow
well.
warblers. They're not like super thick yet, but they're there. So that's like pretty much rounds complete for like I'm just I haven't been to a couple of the nature preserves yet. Like I haven't been into Buckhorn or
Mm-hmm.
um, Tillman over in Clarence. Like there's if I can you can get into a densely wooded area, you're probably or like the periphery of a field, you're probably going to bump into bluebirds and maybe grosbeaks and a couple other like there's just a bunch of species of birds that don't like being around people. You know, they would rather be in heavily wooded areas. So oh yeah, red-eyed like vireos. I've heard
Mm.
warbling vireos, but I haven't heard any red eyes. But I bet you if you go into Devil's Hole, like because red eyes like being in heavily wooded areas. The warbling vireos, they're cool. They'll chill all over the place here.
I
But
actually did get one, the red eye, actually, while I was in PA. Now that
yeah,
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, from on the birding front too, like that's not coincidental that the
Yeah.
fishing and the bird stuff, like all of this life is
Yeah, right
starting
now.
to occur.
Yeah.
Like I've seen osprey chicks, um, like new bald eagle nest on Strawberry Island. Like there used to be one there. It had been vacant for a few years. Now it's rebuilt, and there's a pair on it. There's a pair on Navy Island. Um, there used to be last year there were two nests on Navy Island. Now there's only one. One's complete. Like there's straight up only one there. The other one's totally gone. And there's birds on it. So cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything's waking up. It's
Yeah.
just confusing because things are like happening in weird spurts, and then we keep getting hit with these
Yeah.
like east and northeast winds can be totally fishable, just abusive,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times it brings rain and then, but like we got a huge stretch of stability in front of us, so I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm
looking
not,
forward to it.
I'm going to end up going at least 21 days, at least, which will probably be one of my longer stretches.
Yeah.
Because like every day this week, I'm for sure fishing,
There you
like
go.
at least through Friday, unless Saturday and Sunday end up being totally messed up, but I don't think they
Yeah.
will be. So,
All right. Good stuff.
oh, so the lightning.
Oh yeah, the lightning. Yes, 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 yes.
So the this is on Thursday, and if anybody lives near here in Tonawanda heard this, like for sure. I think like most of Western New York heard this. But so we were out on Thursday, and it wasn't supposed to rain till much later in the day. And we were fishing down East River, and I started seeing these thunderheads coming in. So I like super dark clouds coming in. And I pull up my radar and I'm like, yeah, I mean they're definitely coming at us. There's no like it's a big front. Like we're either gonna have to just hunker down or call it a day. And so we're like, hey, like let's go somewhere where at least we can hunker down, and that way we can stretch out the day and fish longer. So we went and fished near uh, close to the city of Tonawanda. I'll just put it like that, and where I knew I could get shelter. And we were casting crankbaits for smallmouth and just laying into them. It was excellent. And then all of a sudden, like, and dude, the thunderheads were like way over. I guess it would be to our southeast. Like
Yeah.
they weren't coming at us. Like there was no rain coming at us at that point. And all of a sudden, we just heard this sound that I mean, it was insane. It was like just like a freaking huge laser blasted across the sky, right over our heads. Like I mean, just like a massive explosion. Like, and all three of us dropped to the deck at the same time immediately.
Wow.
And
Nuts.
and then I looked back at them and looked at one in the bow, one in the stern, and I'm like, "You guys good?" They're both like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, that's probably a sign that we should move on." And and they were both pumped. They're like, "Oh my god, my heart's pounding. That was crazy." And I'm like, "Yeah, it definitely was." I'm like, I've been close to lightning strikes before. Like I've been in like my buddy Nate and I one time were fishing Kettle Creek in PA, and like a late. This is in the middle of the summer, and this late afternoon thunderstorm just came across the mountains and just started freaking. It dropped hail and rain, and then just crazy lightning strikes happened in both ridge lines to trees near us. I'm like, holy shit! But it wasn't like it was. You could see the lightning strikes, but I'm talking a few hundred yards away, like not right next to us. But that was nuts. That was
Wow.
definitely nuts.
I can only imagine. Dang.
But they weren't the. It's a story now.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
it's a
doubt about
story.
that. You'll be telling that for forever now.
Yeah, man.
All right. So the getting deep part of the podcast. So I texted this to Ryan on I think Friday when I was driving down to my mom's and just texted him food scarcity or podcast topic, food scarcity, um, guides becoming the new grocery stores. Right? Roughly
Yeah,
that's what I said, or that might be exactly what I said. Um, so that was just 3 hour drive, got a lot of time to think. And so that came to mind of, okay, well, and this even came up when we were at lake trout fishing and everything as well. Is like obviously we catch a lot of fish, and despite even if we're not eating them, there is somebody who would probably eat them most of the time. Not that I would keep everything that I catch, obviously, but you see
yeah,
what I'm saying. So like not currently, there isn't really the demand for that. Like people will book a guide, obviously fill their freezer, do XYZ, to have their rations throughout the year. Um, but if it were in the situation where like that had to be the main or closer to the main or a larger part of our
But
food.
it did, dude. It did used to be that way.
I'm saying going back that
Yeah.
way, but yeah.
Well, but it still kind of is like people are just removed. We've outsourced it to a commercial fishing
Mm,
fleet. You know, so you don't have to do it yourself. You've outsourced it now. I mean, the reason why I'm in business is because yeah, I do a lot of bass trips, and we don't keep bass, but
mm-hmm.
I also do a lot of walleye trips and a lot of trout
Yeah.
trips, and a lot of salmon, but not as many salmon trips, but I do a bunch of those too. And all those trips we're killing fish, like so those are people that so that concept
Yeah.
is real. Um, I like the idea of so look, we can maintain an industrial level food generation capacity with huge farms and stuff like that. Like we can continue to do that. But here's the thing, like when you have a population the size of Buffalo that inhabits like just this one
Mm-hmm.
freaking tiny area, that no the area is beyond its carrying capacity
Mm,
for people, right? Like you couldn't possibly harvest enough like food out of this. You would rape the ecosystem.
yeah,
It'd
yeah,
be
yeah,
done.
yeah.
Like it'd be done in days. Because it
Mm,
wouldn't just be us. Like the Canadians would have to be doing it too on their side. And then you'd have to
good
make
point.
laws where it would be for local consumption only, because then there's an incentive as a business to catch as many as you can and
Mm,
sell it and export it to other states that want it, or maybe even other countries. Like wherever you can sell it, you can sell it. Like that's the danger of it becoming
yeah,
a
yeah.
commercial fishery. But it could never be a sustainable business model for a guide to be a grocery, like a new grocery getter, or so
Mm-hmm.
a way that you could pay for somebody to acquire food. That couldn't be a like a national level thing where our population, that's how they acquire
Yeah,
food. Like
yeah,
we're just in excess of our carrying capacity now.
yeah. Good point
for
there.
for certain spots, I think for 330 million people in this country, we are generating more than enough food in our country. We're exporting food, right? So we do have the carrying capacity. I've ranted about in previous podcasts when I came back from from Colorado and Nebraska, how I'm just mind blown why there's massive amounts of windmills, yet there aren't huge herds of bison out there. Like those are grasslands, and they're just these deserts now. Like and it's there's all these crazy water politics that go on, but even once you get into the sandhills, that could sustain them. But we could have enough free range bison to where um, people could pay to hunt and kill those things. That would be highly encouraged and subsidized, and you would make cattle very expensive. I mean, there's ways that you could kind of try to manipulate the process to encourage people to use guides as a food acquiring mechanism. Meaning, so let's say for example, you have a choice in how you can get your food. You can pay a guide to go on an elk hunt.
Mm-hmm.
You can pay a guide for numerous trips to go walleye fishing.
Yep.
You could pay for a guide to go on a caribou hunt or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a shitload of walleyes, and let's say you go up to Alaska, you kill some kings and some halibut, you bring back 70 plus pounds of meat. So all of that would cost you easily $50,000, easily, and probably much more than that. I mean, I'm not going to itemize it, but like with flights, like 50,000 would be conservative, like very conservative. I'm not, say 75K, including flights, tips. And that's if to kill an elk, to kill a caribou, or a buffalo or whatever, but two large game
Mm-hmm.
items, and then filling up another massive quantity of freshwater fish and saltwater fish guided. It would cost like 75K, right? The logistics and everything to do that would be 75K. So the point is you have to travel around all over the
Mm-hmm.
place to make that
Mm-hmm.
happen. You know, our it would take intervention by our government to say to incentivize that behavior.
Mm.
You know, to make all of those food acquiring things tax deductible. You know, that's a start. Or make it to where uh, guides and outfitters have special tax privileges. You know, so we can keep lower rates for clients. Like,
Yeah.
there's different ways to
Hmm.
that we could our federal government could incentivize it if you want the federal government to be involved in the process at all. But the problem is now people can acquire food for so cheap by going to the grocery store that it's people that are looking for, they do want to catch their own fish, right? So
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
there's the pride in knowing that they caught that
Yeah.
themselves, um, that they were part of the whole experience, the whole supply chain for the food, so they know where it came from. They get to take it home and eat it. They have a connection to that thing. They didn't just go to a store and buy it, and they're paying for that
Yeah.
experience, right? Other people are content with going to the store and buying stuff. I go to the store and buy stuff. I don't kill my own cows, and I eat a lot. I don't kill my own lambs, or I kill my own fish, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have that other model. Some guys just killed a bunch of whitetails,
Yeah,
and
for sure. Yeah, and
and
turkeys, and then
yeah,
that's
exactly.
yeah.
So like,
And we've talked about that whole pattern of
right,
life
like
before a lot
if
on
you
the
consider the
podcast.
number of active hunters and anglers for the
Yeah.
region right now, that's what I would call the carrying capacity, right?
Mm.
So it's the people that are putting pressure on the ecosystem, not all the other people like my neighbors and everybody else around me who doesn't fish and isn't a
Mm-hmm.
charter captain. They're not exploiting
Yeah.
any of that, right? So it's just the people that are out there now.
Good
So how
point.
many, like, every area is going to have a carrying capacity for guides before the fishery suffers. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just for guides and recreational angling
Yeah.
pressure. Every area is going to have some level of capacity where, like, point where it just breaks. Because
Yeah, and
of
it's
too much
everything that's
pressure.
adding up. Yeah, the people who are catch and release or catch and kill,
Yeah.
guides, yeah, the whole weekend anglers, all of that. Yeah, all the different pressure that you're putting on them throughout the year. And I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, I didn't think about the whole aspect of like the grand sense of the population. Um, but still, even, yeah, like I don't know, like obviously, yeah, a lot of the clients, like you're saying, for walleye and salmon and everything are, keeping them. I guess me growing up not really being in that like realm of things, for me it feels like a newer movement to like move towards that kind of pattern of like, okay, well, getting the walleye for the year, getting some salmon, because that to me it makes logical sense. Like, I'm already going to be out fishing, why would I not
Yeah.
subsidize
I
my
mean,
food
dude,
with
think about
this?
this, man. Like, for you to acquire your own food by hunting or gathering, that costs you money, right? In time and calories, right? You still have to take off work to do it. You might be able to do it on weekends when
Yeah.
other people are doing it, but like, my point behind, like, the government incentivizing things is there are ways where it could be culturally acceptable. Like, for example, like, it wasn't all that long ago that a woman having a baby taking maternity leave, that just was generally unacceptable, for, like, especially for a prolonged period of time. Now it is, for good reason. It should be that way. Um, the same thing goes for people that are taking the time to acquire their own food and doing so responsibly. Like, it doesn't just have to be with guides. I mean, great, there could be incentives on the guide front,
Yeah.
but why isn't it? Why do you have to burn paid time off to go kill your own animal? I mean, there should be limits to that, right? Like, you can't just say 3 days, and at the end of those 3 days, like, look, there's it would have to start off as an honor system, but you know, there have to be ways of supervising that, because think about this, dude. Like, if we created an opportunity for people, like let's say we helped regenerate uh, grasslands and inhabited those grasslands with bison, so people could come in
Hmm.
and just take them out and be part of the whole process. Like, just kill one at a time. That you buy into a whatever government raffle it is that it's a federal herd. Anybody around the country can do it. There's just all different types of ways that you can come up with, and that person that you could potentially hunt these things, and that person should be given the amount of time to be able to go do that, if be it 3 to 5 days, whatever it is.
Hmm.
If you go to an area where there's huge herds of bison and you can just take your pick, the time it takes for you to get there, harvest the animal, have it
Process. Yep.
processed, and have it packed, and then fly
Travel. Yeah.
home. That amount of time shouldn't be charged to paid time off, right? That's like a small incentive, I think.
Yeah.
But then it should also be incentive. It shouldn't be as expensive as it is to have to do that. That's what's so wild about it. Like, that's how crazy things have gotten, is that we have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to do something that we used to do daily. Like, it was just part of our
No
pattern of
doubt.
life, and now we have to spend, lots. Like, that's just when I say tens of $1,000s, like going on high, like nice elk, like legit elk hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you can go to Colorado and do a DIY thing. I don't think it's that cheap.
No, you're
But
sinking money into it
I mean,
regardless.
between
Yeah.
the flight and all the logistics associated with it, then packing out the animal,
Tags.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, like all that stuff. Like, it's not cheap. Going to a lodge is definitely expensive,
Hmm.
and booking guides isn't cheap. Like, it's just certain, like somebody who's struggling to pay their bills, unless they're just really looking for just a total day to escape and they save up their money to go do it. They're definitely not doing it. They're not booking me specifically so they can procure some food,
Yeah.
because it's just not cost effective.
Yeah.
I would like for it to be cost effective, but here's the thing: like, the amount of people that I don't know how many days on the water. Like, if you took all the guides here, let's say
Hmm.
for example, and because you'd have to figure out the math of this, of how many people live in an area. Two, how many fish do they need to harvest and how often to
Mm.
support their family? And three, what is the potential population of the fish in the area and its carrying capacity? Like, how quickly will that population regenerate if you harvest from it? Like, you got to figure all this stuff out,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's why regulations are what they are. And I can tell you right now that if everybody around here wanted to eat off of the resource, they couldn't. Like, we
Yeah.
would
For
deplete the
sure.
resource right
Yeah.
away. So what's the right number? And then if we
Mm.
get to
Yeah.
what's the right number, then you ask yourself, when you get to, because we're probably talking about, like, let's say a few hundred, or maybe 1,000. Let's say 1,000 people living in this area, and completely. It might be higher than that, but let's just use a
Yeah.
thousand for a number. Well, when you get 1,000 people together, you're already a society. Like, people start to have different roles, right? So when you live in very small hunter gatherer bands, everybody, it's like special operations. Like, everybody's multitask, like
Mm.
has multiple skill sets. They can all do a bunch of things because you're operating in a small group. You're thinking very near term when you're operating, and there's a lot of instinct, and you're also trying to kill whenever you can, to procure food. Or if you're on a mission, same thing.
Hmm.
So you're dialed. And it's because you're all like almost one organism. If
Yeah.
especially if you're something like 12 or less,
Hmm.
you know, everybody's multi-skilled. You start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, then people start to realize, well, if I'm really good at this thing, and if I do this, I can help everybody else out. But the problem is if I spend my time doing this, I can't go get my own food. And so some guys like, well, dude, I'm pretty good at going and getting food, so I'll just go do that. well, you do this, and then we can kind of trade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it would that's what it would turn out to be. And like so back in the day when there were small
Yeah.
villages, that's how it was, man. Like
Yeah.
that's why you had butchers and bakers and
Yeah.
candlestick makers and like
Yeah. For
you,
sure.
you
For
had you
sure.
had the like places to go buy meat, like, and it was all meat that some local guy,
Yeah.
either he had cows, like he had
Yeah.
cattle, or he hunted for it. He caught or captured that stuff and butchered it, and now he's selling it. Like that's how things were on a small
Yeah.
scale, and we could totally operate that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is like we would have to unravel part of our supply chain, and we would also have to try to figure out like how to produce the number of calories required locally. And you would also have to try to figure out how to zone for that accordingly. Like so if a population increases for every, X number of new homes and families that move to an area, um, how many more farms and cattle or
Yeah.
whatever do we need to raise, or what, you know that all that stuff you have to figure out, and
Yeah.
but I'm willing to bet that this area, like, I don't know what animals you could let loose in the southern tier. Like, let's say all, like, just think about your drive between you here and your Allegheny National
Mm-hmm.
Forest, like the whole drive between you and
Yeah.
where your mom lives. There's vast expanses of wilderness that there's fire roads and stuff that are through them, and there's like maybe a house here and there, but it's just vast expanses of
Mm-hmm.
rolling hills. What animals could thrive in that? And how do you get that population to boom, and manage it accordingly so people can go and hunt it,
Mm-hmm.
you know but you would have to be able to like make sure that the area has the carrying capacity to feed
Yeah.
all those animals, but you would try to figure out how to grow as many of them as possible. And to me that just sounds super burdensome.
Yeah.
If and it would probably there's all these weird incentives involved in the process, and it's just too big,
Yeah.
you
I
know
guess, yeah, still on keeping it on the small scale though, like how it, just that there is going to be that niche community that does that anyways.
but I love the idea for the purposes of those who are willing to do it, because we have to think about how crazy this is, that somehow we've gotten our food system and our level of skills development to be so narrow, back to the earlier point of like, I'm good at this and I'm good at this, so we're all like trading, currency. um, but we've gotten it so narrow that we've become so completely removed from our food system. And I'm not talking about, buying local, for uh, like vegetables and stuff, and buying local for cattle. I do, right? But if everybody bought local off of the small, independent grass-fed cattle operations going on around here, like they'd be
Yeah.
completely tapped out.
Yeah.
They're taking care of a very small niche population. It's
Yeah.
expensive, and I support them. I think the meat tastes better, than what you buy in the grocery store. So, but they can't support everybody around here. We have to take up much more land and get
Mm-hmm.
these operations going to accommodate people. But then just ask yourself, well, why cows though? Like what else could be there that
Yeah.
would be, may potentially more beneficial to the environment,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm. Good
or
point.
find a new balance, introduce something else, and
Yeah.
still rely on cattle to some extent, but like there's maybe a compromise in there too.
Yeah, and yet again, like the introduction of certain animals, or like the increasing the population of, like, or I don't know, just different ways, because there's not every, there's a lot of different routes that you could go. Like if pheasants were reintroduced again, and that became a thing again, that's another route that people would be taking for food. And then there's the waterfowl route. So I don't know. There obviously, yes, still it's a very limited, but there are different aspects to it as well that could be worked with. But yeah, like you said, that there's a lot of logistics.
Yeah,
It's a burdensome thing, regardless of to
but
take on.
to me, just the simplest form of it, what I think would be an easy sell, or should be an easy sell, is my original thought about we we are willing to pay thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to do something that we all, not all that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
like a couple hundred years ago, used to have to do on our own every day.
Yeah.
Like and like we would have to we did it by ourselves, figuring
Yeah.
it out on our own, unguided.
Yeah.
Now we have to pay thousands of dollars to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have to, but if you want to go back to that time, you must pay it. Like if you
Yeah.
want to go back to a more primitive version of human, you must pay. There's a toll for going back
Such an
in.
interesting.
There's a
Yeah.
toll for going back in time. I mean, think
Yeah.
about that, dude. Like you're. I mean, to me, it seems like you're being penalized for trying to go back in time. I mean, if you have to pay for it,
Yeah, that's
because
a good point.
look, the service exists because there's a demand for it,
Mm-hmm.
and not just because there's a demand. That's definitely a huge part of it. The other part of it is because there's a need amongst the guiding community to advocate for the resources that are there, to draw people's attention to it. So it's like it's a symbiotic thing
Mm-hmm.
between supply and demand, and then just general advocacy.
Yeah.
And you go down a bunch of different strands there, but that's why it exists. And so people pay for that can afford it in order to go back in time. And that's, to me, seems like you're being penalized.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, create some sort of tax incentive to allow, or just create some sort of incentives to allow people to do that,
Yeah.
where it's not as
Burdensome to your life or
financially.
taking. Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Because until our population completely collapses as a species,
Yeah.
like there are too many of us to be all hunter gatherers.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not.
Yeah.
The more distant you get from a population, so the real solution to your quandary, though, is just move away from close concentrations of people,
Yeah.
and
You're right.
find a small group of friends, ideally, couples, and build a compound somewhere. And you're not starting a cult.
Yeah.
It's just like, look, man,
Yeah.
like how much? Okay, there's gonna be 10 of us, maybe even kids, like young kids involved. So how would you how would you develop a village? So to sustain, five or four, single family homes.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you arrange a village to do that? And then how much acreage do you need
Mm-hmm.
to be able to
Pull that off.
to live off of,
Yeah.
as far as biomass around you?
Mm-hmm.
And is that possible anywhere in this country right now that isn't private?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
meaning because
Interesting.
I mean, we have restrictions of seasons, right? I
Yeah,
mean, but
for
even
sure.
if you took the restrictions of seasons away, is there anywhere? And here's the crazy thing, dude, is that it would probably be very expensive to try to do that. To get it, like, your setup costs
Yeah.
would be very
True.
expensive to do.
Yet again to go back to the
Right,
way
to
it
go
was,
back
yeah.
to go back in time, you have to, like, you are on the progress train until you decide to get off of it. And you can ponder getting off of it all you want, man. And you can do it, like, what we advocate for on this podcast all the time. Like you can
Yeah.
do as much as you can spend as much time outside as possible to try to keep you connected to, the
Yeah.
matrix that's outside the four walls, but you're still moving forward with it, man. Like
Yeah.
like if you live in this area and you're going to continue to live in this area, like you're going to get wrapped up, and I'm about as removed from things as possible. Like I'm not on social media. I don't watch TV all that much. I mean, I listen to a handful of podcasts, and I, I'm especially this time of year, I'm fishing all the time. So like I don't know what's going on in the world. The only time I know
Yeah.
what's going on in the world is the winter when I'm like
Yeah.
consuming
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
amounts of content.
Yeah.
This time of year, like there could be a war going on somewhere else, and I would have no clue.
Yeah.
My clients would have to tell me about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Which that's the word of mouth, anyways, is the way they usually get your
yeah,
news. Anyways, you know
right.
what I'm saying? So another step back, but it's actually progress in my eyes.
Yeah,
But
I
you know,
think that the
got to have conversations then
we
too.
should to some extent incentivize buying local and generating local,
Yeah, for sure.
and de-incentivize or just neutralize, or like not de-incentivize, but just take to strip the incentives away from industrial agriculture
Yeah.
and kind of force the hand to become more local.
Hmm.
Now, if you did something like that, though, you'd have to compensate the farmers and all the people that work for on those farms before doing that, but which could totally be done.
Yeah.
But is there the will?
Mm. Good question there. Good question. Hmm. Well, on another note of shopping locally,
Yeah.
we have a new section that we're going to add into the podcast, hopefully weekly, but if not, every few weeks. And as for the audio listeners, this part isn't going to be as exciting, but still, you can hop over to the YouTube channel and check it out if you're interested. So I'm going to go over a few of the jigs that I tie throughout the week and show them. They are all available. If you are interested, message me on Instagram or on the website, and we can see what we can do there. So, all right, this first one that we have here, hopefully everything is in frame and every on the camera for you, and if not, there's going to be photos online. But this is the 5/8 ounce JDO bucktail variation. I did this this winter, so got some white, olive, gold flash, a little red, purple on the collar, nice golden eye. I believe Ryan has the yes, he does has the same one over in his stack in the corner. So, and then the other one, just a classic, all-time favorite, the white red bucktail. Ryan, you've caught a lot of fish on one of these, right?
Yes, I have.
This one here is 3/8, and then this other one was 5/8. Both great sizes. Um, they'll catch you fish, no doubt about it. Wicked sharp Gamakatsu hooks on there, poured, tied by hand by me. If you're interested, shoot me a message on Instagram. They will be available for you. All right. And on that note, I think we're good to wrap up for the week. Tight lines. Catch you next week. Have a good one.
See you.